Hey guys, what's up? This is Pantera Dragon, and today we'll be doing 15 tips on improving as a jungler. Now, if you guys don't know who I am already, I am a challenger player in North America at around 500 LP, and my main role is jungle, so this video will probably be the best out of the other videos that have to do with tips on other roles. Now, I did a video like this, something similar a year from now, but things do change and people learn new things, and well, for myself, I've learned new things. So this is going to be a 2014 version of that video, and hopefully you guys learn a lot from this video, and yeah, hopefully you guys improve as a jungler. Alright, so first tip, don't go to losing lanes. The reason behind this is because you don't want to get counter ganked by the enemy jungler, because if you do fight a 2v2, you're most likely to lose since the enemy has a winning lane. Thus the enemy can even snowball harder than they already were. And I bet you guys have been in that scenario where you've been 2v3'd by the enemy bot lane since your bot lane was so behind. Now, some exceptions are if you know what enemy jungler is and he won't come for the counter gank and you can 1v2, then yes, go for it. Just try to snowball the other lanes and ignore that losing lane, and it'll be better for the team mid-game. Next tip, don't miss your buffs when it comes up. So there are two reasons why it's good to do this. The first reason is because the buffs do give a lot of experience points, and thus you gain levels faster. But the real reason is because if the enemy jungler sees that you don't have your buff picked up, and it's like 7 minutes usually when the first buff does spawn, they can easily go to that buff and take it if you aren't around the area. So like say you take your blue buff from purple side and then gank bottom, that's an easy red buff for them to steal, and thus the enemy is 3 buffs to your 1. On the contrary, if the enemy doesn't have his buffs by this time, then you can easily take his buffs. Next tip, don't do dragon when you get a kill and you are less than level 7. So this is an interesting one, but basically with the recent buffs to dragon, it's harder to do and it does a lot of damage to the person tanking it. And now the scenario that usually comes up is basically it's going to be a 4v3 since you took out someone, and most likely all your ultimates are down since you just use it to get that one kill. And then say you go to dragon and try and burn it down, the enemy has a really good advantage on you since you're tanking the dragon and are all clumping up around the dragon. And so since you're less than level 7 and your team isn't that strong enough to burn it down quickly, I advise you to put the pressure around somewhere else on the map when you get that kill. Remember, this is just a general rule as there will be situations where you can do dragon when you're less than level 7. Next tip, camp lanes with no summoners. These lanes should be your top priority for ganking as they have one less escape to get away from your gank, as flash does get them closer to their safety net, aka their tower, and so it's actually kind of hard to kill them with that up. Like for instance, if they do have flash and say a Wukong is ganking them, they'll immediately use that flash when you gap close onto him since they know that Wukong will use his ultimate and you'll be CC'd and take a lot of damage. And so without the flash, it's easier for, say, Wukong to gank that lane. That's why it's important for your laners to give you information like if the enemy's flash is down, then you can prioritize that lane for sure. And also it does help for those 2v2 skirmishes, as flash can give you a positional advantage over the enemy. Next tip is to react to aggression. This means that if you see any kind of aggression coming from the enemy, it means they're going to want to play more up and overextending, which also means they're more vulnerable to ganks. Thus, it's easier for you to pin them down and kill them. This concept also goes with map awareness. If you see something happening around the map, like if an enemy is being aggressive somewhere and trading a lot with his laner, or trying to zone his laner, then that makes him more vulnerable to ganks. So yeah, the over-aggressive laners are the one you want to put a tent on. So the next tip, if the enemy jungle is low, you can counter jungle him and duel him in his own jungle. This means you have free reign over his jungle since he's low, and let's say he wants to contest a wolf or a wraith. He can't since you have the kill potential on him if he tries to contest those wraiths or whatever. And so as a general rule to myself, I like to go into the enemy's jungle if he's low so I can zone him off his own jungle. And yeah, he will miss some experience since you are in his jungle and he can't do any creeps. Or if you're just a more powerful jungler and you know you can duel the enemy jungler, then go for it. But you don't want to go too deep into the enemy jungle. If you do all in onto the enemy and chase him down, you will be susceptible to the enemy laners collapsing onto you. But general rule of thumb for any jungler, if the enemy is low, then you can go into his jungle. And for the next tip, counter jungle the enemy if he's far away. The reason behind this is because you want to deprive the enemy jungle of his resources. And so when he does come back to his jungle after being in another area, he will see that only his small wolves are there for him to take. This is also a really safe move since the enemy can't contest whatever you're taking, since the enemy jungler is not there, and thus it'd be a 2v3. Next tip, always ask yourself, can we contest this? I think this is a great mindset to get into, as you can analyze the situation and ask yourself, can we contest this blue? Can we contest this dragon? Can we contest this baron? And then you say, okay, we can, because we just got a kill onto bot lane and we're all still full health. And so this can help you on indecisive decision making, and also can stop you on mindlessly walking with your teammates around the map, and can also stop you from, say, doing that baron throw if you think it's a bad call. So it is a good habit to get into. Alright, so the next tip is pretty simple. Cover when there's CS to grab. When say one of your laner dies, you don't want the farm to go to waste, and so you want to gain all the experience points and the gold that is hitting the tower. So say if one of your laners dies, just go to the lane, cover, make sure not to take a lot of poke, and then wait until your laner comes back to lane again. Alright, so next tip is shoving the lane when you get a kill. This varies if the lane is pushing onto you. So the reason behind this is because you want the enemy to miss all the CS that he could have had if he didn't die, and then shoving the lane and letting your creeps hit his tower. The only one who's actually getting the creeps is either his jungler, who's there to cover, or the tower. Now, a situation that might rise is if the enemy's lane is pushing onto you. Sometimes you might not want to push this because the enemy is actually losing CS since his creeps are killing yours. And we also get a pushed lane onto our team, which is really good. But usually in this situation, it is all up to the laner if he wants to push or to keep it pushing on him. Since he might want to recall, or he has a plan where he's going to teleport back to his tower and grab all the CS after he's bought. But most of the time, you will be pushing into the enemy tower. Alright, next tip, you want to build defensively when you're behind, and if you're ahead, you can build offensively. The reason behind this is because if you build offensively when you're behind, your presence in teamfights is a lot less lackluster. But if you're a tank, you can obviously be more in the teamfight and survive longer and do all your stuff. But when you're ahead, you want to have more presence in the game and keep that snowball rolling. But like someone like Jarvan, you don't want to go too much offensively, because once the enemy gets some damage, they will be taking you down, so you want to build kind of offensive and then into more tankier. Some exceptions are champions like Kha'Zix and Jungle Zed. They aren't the best tanks and require more damage to be useful, so yeah, they're a very special case. Next tip, you want to get a Sightstone when playing the vision control game. If you want to be a more supportive jungle, you probably want to get Sightstone and help your team by warding up the area. Vision control is so strong in the current meta, and it's actually really good to get the Sightstone on certain junglers. Like a situation where I get Sightstone is if I see that the minimap is kind of dark, then that's when I say, okay, it's time for me to get a Sightstone to help my team a bit. Most times we will have vision around the map and know where the enemy is going. Alright, so next tip, always do a camp when smite is up early game. Alright, so the reasoning behind this is because in the early game your clear speeds aren't the best right now, since you probably don't have the Spirited Elder Lizard or Riggo's Lantern or even levels by then. And so in the early game, how I like to look at it is if my smite is down, I will look for ganks, and if my smite is up, I will look for clears. Alright, so next tip is try and get wards into the enemy jungle. With the information given on where the enemy jungle is, this helps your team a lot, as they can react to where he's going to be in a certain amount of time. So with this information to me as a jungler, I can either counter gank a lane that he might be going to, or I can ping that the enemy jungler is in this side of the map and that you should be careful. Or say if my ward spots him on the other side of the map, and then I can gank a lane with no fear that it will be counter ganked, since the enemy jungler is on the other side of the map. Alright, so the next tip is, if I see low enemies, this means I have objective control. This means I have control over an objective and I can take it, and there's no way the enemy can contest it since they are low, and if they wanted to contest it, then what would probably happen is they'd probably die and we'd probably still get the objective or get it later and win a team fight. So if you see low enemies and you see a nearby objective, take it. Just realize that the enemy is low and they can't fight you at the moment. Alright, so next tip, if the enemy jungler is top, take dragon once you're level 7 or higher. This is essentially a free dragon since it would be a 4v3 if the enemy want to contest. And so it would be probably easy to take down as long as your lanes are winning, although be aware that the enemy top might have teleport and can turn that into a 4v4, so you might want to take that into consideration too. On the contrary, if you're top, take the top tower if you're over level 7. If the enemy jungler is smart, he'll probably take dragon, and so you would take the top tower and trade objectives. And for the last tip, you want to take 1 crit rune on your reds, because RNG is broken. Alright, so that's the end of this video. I hope you guys learned a lot. If you guys did enjoy this video, please press that subscriberino button, as it does help in terms of getting the 100,000 subscriberino dream. And if you did enjoy this video, you'll probably enjoy 10 tips to help carry as a jungler in low ELO. So just click that picture right in the middle and it'll direct you to the video. And if you're a mid laner watching this video, you'll probably enjoy 10 tips on how to improve as a mid laner. So yeah, I thank you guys for watching this video and hopefully we'll see you guys next time.